Welcome back to the Fanspeak Network and another episode of Sibling Showdown, the strategy series. That's right, the strategy series. Steve and I are going to be talking about the different formats of Underdog and how we want to approach them. We already have the Super Flex strategy up on Fanspeak Network. Go to the Best Ball tab. It's under there. It'll live there all summer. And so will this one. We're covering the marathon strategy. The great thing about these episodes, marathon, sprint, Superflex, Eliminator. There's so many ways to approach it, and they are different types of strategies. And Steve and I are going to talk about them here on the Fanspeak Network through the strategy shows. We are going to talk about them in live drafts, as we've already done and will continue to do. And we are going to be writing about them, as you have already seen on our Fanspeak Substack. And we have rankings for them on our Fanspeak Substack. So if you haven't already checked out the Fanspeak Substack, $34.99 for the entire year. And that includes 3 to 4 articles a week from Steve and I, and rankings for all these different formats, as well as classic, up on the Substack. Check it out, link below. Steve, with all that fun stuff said, I know you've had a lot of success in the drafters season-long streets. That's weeks 1 through 17, different format here. I finished 138th in the marathon on very limited entries. Again, marathon drafters, all that. That's weeks 1 through 17. We're not, playing for playoff pods. We're not playing for, playoff weeks. Every week means the same thing. Cumulative scoring weeks 1 through 17. So what are your favorite things, kind of concepts about the marathon tournament itself? And then we'll get into the strategies.
So one, like you said, it's weeks 1 through 17. Every week matters the same. There's no, all the money is in week 17 sort of thing. Like, of course you need to be strong throughout, but it's not like you're building for just 1 week or 2 weeks, like the playoff formats can be. The other things, sure, we're competing with everyone in our pod who we draft with, but it's not like only 2 of us can cash money out of this pod. You could have 3, 4, 5 teams at least get into the money. And I think that's important to remember. Definitely helps when we're streaming these types of things, because we can have a friends and family draft and we all can profit. But I like drafts that reward you for good drafting. And that's what this format absolutely does. And the draft is the thing that we have the most control on. We can't control injuries. We can't control benchings. We can't control,
Pod
luck, weird coaching decisions, stuff like that. But we can control, coaches getting fired mid-year, but we can control the draft as much as possible, both in terms of build structure, types of players that we're drafting, and I think just kind of like an understanding of, we have a better understanding of players who fit this format better because of their more consistent styles. Mm-hmm. You do want to have some of that balance, like floor ceiling combos matter a little bit more.
Yeah.
In something like BBM, particularly with the larger pods for playoffs and then a large final, you really are looking for some of those ultimate spike weeks to just rise you to the top. But here, you want to make sure you're not conceding too much value in just hoping that you get the right combo spike week guys. You want some of that, but you still want guys who can just have consistent quality scores throughout the year.
Yeah. And you pointed out one of my favorite things about this contest. I think it's this purest form of best ball fantasy. It's, it rewards good drafting. There is, of course there's luck in all forms of fantasy, but in this, the luck really lies in, you need your team to stay healthy. If you draft a good team, you're going to get rewarded. And so that's what I really, really like about it the most. In Underdog, and some people would say, well, why don't you just play on drafters? Drafters is great. I personally have always done better half point PPR, so that's why I am going to lean into the marathon. I only did 6 entries and finished 138th. We'll go over my team in a minute, but I love that they still do this on Underdog. So there's 75,000 entrants, $15 entry fee. Top prize, still 6 figures, 100,000. In compared to drafters, it's almost double the field, and I think 100,000 is the third place prize, and top prize is, I'm 300,000 or something like that. So, you still have a 6-figure payday up top and pretty flat payout structure where 100,000 to first, 10,000 to 10th. pretty flat throughout. So basically, and this is where I was in a larger size last year, but if you finish, I finished in the top 150, 138th, and I won around 700. Yeah, if you finish in this one, since it's a smaller field this year, 75,000 entries, if you finish in the top 100, it's 750 and above, top 75, 1,000 and above. I like that. And again, you do need the luck of your team to stay healthy, but it is rewarding you if you draft, a smart, strong team. So those are kind of my favorite things about it and the structure of the marathon itself on Underdog. Now, Steve, let's talk about strategies, and I'll bring over my.
Could I make one more point about the payout structure? That's
nice. Please.
In regular tournaments, 16.7%. 16.8, whatever it is, people get paid 2 of 12. In this, it's 16% are in the money. Mm-hmm. The difference is you double your money at the minimum, where most other formats, you don't double your money until you get to the semifinals.
Correct. That's a great point. Excellent point.
So that's just something to keep in mind. Also, like, it's slightly less than some other tournaments, though there are the tournaments like for instance, eliminators, I think only 12.5% even get any money. And then only 6.25% double their money. So it's just something to keep in mind. And last year I didn't have the top end success that you had. And so I didn't make money on this tournament, but I had 45 entries and 15 of them made the money. So in that kind of format, that can be a good way, easier to hit return ROI. And, if I just had one team get a little higher, I obviously would have profited.
Well, and you did, speaking of, can speak to the season-long success, cumulative scoring on drafters, you did have a top 10 finish on the drafters pre-draft contest, yes. Correct? Yeah. So drafters pre-draft contest, I believe you won 1,000, 1,500 on that?
It was like 1,250.
1,250, yeah. And I think you finished 8th. I know Al Boogie was right behind you and giving you a hard time. And so, yeah, we both have done rather well in these, and it's not like we've maxed these either. So I don't know if I'll end up maxing, but I want to get a lot of volume down, because to your point, if you finish in that top 16%, you're doubling your money. So again, it's looking to accomplish 2 things. I have 2 goals with Best Ball, and everybody should ask themselves, because I respect the people who are like, no, I just want to do BBM. I want to do the lotto. I'm shooting for the moon. Great. You should ask yourself what you want to get out of your Best Ball season. And what I want to get out of my Best Ball season is ideally profiting and a week 17 sweat. And obviously in the classic contest or the other types of formats, you've got to make the finals to have a week 17 sweat and profit. In this case, I do think it can be a cleaner, again, if you build good teams, if you stay lucky with injury health, you can have a cleaner path to profitability. But I do also think it gives, even though I didn't have like a massive week 17 sweat for 4 or 5, 6 figures, I had a week 17 sweat. I was watching that team very closely and sweating that team out, because it could have finished a little lower, could have finished a little higher, and I maybe would have gotten $1,000. Could have finished a little lower, and I would have been more in the like $500 tier. I ended up winning 700. So it was a week 17 sweat, and those are the 2 goals that I have. And I think this leads me to that. And so that's why I'm going to lean heavily into that. And we're going to lean into content. Obviously, this strategy show, which will live on under the Best Ball tab on Fanspeak Network here all summer, but we'll be doing plenty of marathon drafts. We've already done at least 1 or 2. We're going to do plenty more this summer on Sibling Showdown. And then, of course, we'll have content we already do on the Fanspeak Substack, which I'll pull over in a minute. And we'll continue to add more content. And my rankings for marathon are up there as well. Steve will also be adding drafters rankings here in early July as well, too. So, Steve, with that said, let me bring over my marathon strategy article on Substack. We're not going to give it away for free, but let's hit the highlights here. Saquon was my cover boy because he was obviously one of the keys to my lineup. So my lineup that finished 138th, scored 2,354 points. Josh Allen, Kirk Cousins, Will Levis, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Chuba Hubbard, Tank Bigsby, Khalil Herbert, Jordan Addison, Drake London, Jamison Williams. That's not in order of their drafted. Lab McConkey, Calvin Ridley, Curtis Samuel, Roman Wilson, George Kittle, Jonnu Smith, Juwan Johnson. So again, finished $700, 138th. As you can see here, let me make this a little bigger. 10 10 players massively outperform their ADP and positional rank. That's what you're looking to do. We'll get to that in a minute. 3 players still contributed in Kirk Cousins, Calvin Ridley, and Tank Bigsby, and 5 were zeros or duds. So had I had better late, luckily for me, they were all my late round guys. If I would have had better late round picks, I would have done better. But this is what you want to do. You really want to hit a parlay of getting, top positional guys, and hit a parlay of getting, a top, 1 through 5 quarterback, multiple top running backs, multiple top receivers, multiple top tight ends. So as you can see, my guys that hit: Josh Allen, QB2, Barkley, running back 1. Obviously, this is season long, weeks 1 through 17. Josh Jacobs, RB4, Chuba Hubbard, RB12, Drake London, Ladd McConkey, Jordan Addison, Jamison Williams, all wide receiver 9 through 19. So no like top, 5 wide receivers, but I did have wide receiver 9 through 19, 4 in there. And then George Kittle, tight end 1, Jonnu Smith, tight end 4. So before we get into some of the other strategies, is that kind of the easiest way that you describe it, is hitting that basically parlay of I want to get these top positional, when the season's all said and done, who is going to be finishing in the top 5, top 10 at their position? I want to kind of hit that parlay.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously, as you mentioned, like you hit on these draft picks, and that's what carried you. Ideally, at any point, you want to get value. If you're drafting somebody as wide receiver 20, you don't want them to finish wide receiver 25. It's not going to pay off, because we're not even looking at points per game. So guys who get injured, or in this case, likely Jordan Addison with the suspension, he will miss a couple games, and that might not matter in a BBM because it's all about the playoff format, but it matters more here, where if he misses 3 games, that's 3 games.
Yeah.
But you want, if you're drafting a wide receiver 20, you want them to at least hit that, but ideally they're wide receiver 15, wide receiver 12, whatever case may be. Chuba Hubbard being your best example of, he was probably going as RB 45 something last year, and he finishes as an RB 12. And that's the other reason why you were to get by with just kind of utilizing 4 receivers, because Hubbard was in your flex so often. And and of course Barkley and Jacobs were
dominated the running back position,
and still were returning value, because Barkley was drafted as running back 6 or 7,
and finishes RB1. Yeah,
and Jacobs is like RB 10 or 11.
Yeah, so you want to pay off, basically. You want to exceed their ADP value, exceed their positional value. So yeah, obviously in the round 1 guys, you need them to do what they're supposed to do, and all the other rounds, you're looking to, like you said, exceed value. Yeah, like what do you think Josh Jacobs was drafted as last year? Because he was going like 4th round. In this draft, I think it was probably around 4th round, maybe 5th. But what was he probably going as?
I would imagine his RB 10th through 12th, depending on when you took him, and because he was kind of fluctuating with 1 or 2 guys. But
I would thought he was even later than that. But yeah, I mean, but to get him as RB4,
there was like 4 running backs in the 1st round, another 4 in the 2nd round. But I think the 3rd round was kind of thin.
Yeah,
it was just Henry and maybe 1 other one.
Gotcha. Yeah. Bottom line is, even with Barkley, obviously drafted as like RB, 5, finishes RB1. Josh Jacobs drafted as, like you said, definitely well above or well behind where he finished as RB4. So, and Chuba, massive value. And even guys like Kittle and Jonnu Smith. I mean, Jonnu Smith finishing tight end 1 and 4. Obviously Josh Allen, he did what he's supposed to do. He finished QB2. So, I think that's the kind of way I'm looking at it, is I want to kind of like in each round, okay, are these guys going to massively outperform their positional values? And wow, it'd be really fun to think about if I would have hit on those last 4 or 5 picks, because, I did whiff there. But yeah, any other thoughts before we go down to some of the other strategies that I wrote about?
Yeah, one, I also think this shows, like, I hear this when people talk about whether drafters or the marathon, it's like, oh, it's all injury luck, or you miss on a guy and it's over. But like, you're a perfect example. The UD contest last year, the marathon contest last year, like you said, was like twice the size, and you missed on a little less than a third of your draft, and yet you were still top 150. And honestly, like, it's just truly one or two. Had you hit one or two of those, you easily would have been top 100.
Yeah.
A number of points behind the top 100, top 75. You weren't far behind. Like at
Right.
this, when we talk season long, like it's just a couple points difference. Like 7 points would have put you in the top 100, I think.
Right.
Something like that. So
I wish we still had access to BBMD right now. Right now, it's
yeah,
because that's
so
what you and I did a big analysis of that.
And I
Thankfully,
remember,
when it was still up with the 2024 data. Go ahead.
and I remember looking at it, and it's very similar to the for me the drafters. Like I said, I got like 1,200 or maybe 1,250, whatever it was, but I was like 2.5 points away from another $500. Like that's
Yeah.
how close they were. Like Al Boogie was less than a point behind me.
Right. Right.
So these margins become very, very small over the course of the season, and that's why just any little edge you can get can really pay off for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at some of these other strategies that I wrote about and discuss them. Other strategies that I consider in the cumulative score in weeks 1 through 17. You're going to give a little bump down to rookies, injured or suspended players. Obviously, this year, Addison did not get suspended last year, but he likely will for 3 games this year. Injury-prone players. That doesn't mean you're never going to draft them. We love rookies. I had Ladd McConkey in this contest. I had Roman Wilson, who didn't pay off, but you could still draft them. Just make sure the price is right on them and make sure they're going to exceed. Ladd McConkey finished as wide receiver 13. So that was well ahead of where he was drafted. That totally worked. And he was even like a post-buy rookie bump guy. So you could still draft him. I just wouldn't maybe do, 8 rookies or something like that. And I would just make sure the rookies you're drafting are going to pay off. Same with, you can draft injured or guys coming back from injury. You can draft Addison. Just make sure the price is right. Injury prone players, there is a discount on Tua Tagovailoa. It's really just a matter of your risk tolerance. Like, do you want to say, okay, I'm going to draft X%. I'm going to be over the field on Tua because I believe the price is so right that if he doesn't get injured and doesn't miss time, that that it's going to be massive payoff. Sure, I'll probably sprinkle in some Tua, but I personally don't think the risk is worth it. I do think it's highly unlikely he plays a whole entire season. So I'll personally not have a lot of him. But again, that's all your risk tolerance. You can still draft these types of players. Just make sure the price is right for them. Any thoughts on that before we go to the next?
Yeah, no. And I think so far, I haven't looked at the most recent marathon ADPs, but we haven't seen enough, I feel, drop in some of these guys. Like Addison being the perfect example. We don't know for sure his suspension.
Right.
But whether it's 1 game or 3 games, he absolutely should go probably multiple rounds, particularly if it's 3 games. He should go multiple rounds lower than he does in like BBM. He can still be a fine pick if you're taking him in the 80s or 90s versus the 60s. But that's where he should be going because of that. We know that. And same with some of these guys coming back from injury who maybe are going to start slow. Like
I wouldn't touch Ayuk at all. His ADP is 90 and no, thank you. I just don't see how he pays. If he starts on PUP, ramps up and isn't really ramped up till like week 8 or 9, I just don't see how he pays off even ADP 90. That's my personal opinion, but I've never been a big Brandon Ayuk girl either. Addison, probably still going too high. He is currently, and I do have the marathon rankings up, ADP 67. So I would draft Addison if it's more like ADP, like you said, 75, 80, something along those lines. So
and especially if it is more of 3 games. And this is something when we get that news, he will fall in all formats, but in like BBM, he might fall half a round. Yeah. Here he should fall rounds.
Right. Exactly.
These are important games. And honestly, it's also true. And this can be a bit more guessing, but guys coming back from injury, like a Chris Godwin, like I have no fear of Chris Godwin being, good to go for the playoffs, but it might be particularly with them taking a guy like Mbuka and having another young receiver like Jalen McMillan, like they might start slow. And the first 4 or 6 weeks, Godwin might only be like a 50% player.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. And again, particularly if you're drafting at volume, still take these guys, still consider them, even at their ADPs. But if you're only drafting like 5 or 10 teams, then maybe try and avoid more of those types of guys as possible, because you're just adding too much risk that is unnecessary.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it depends on how many teams you're drafting, your risk tolerance, and then if you're drafting throughout the course of the summer, potentially with news, take then the ADP values if you're getting it. It's a lot of factors. Like Addison, I think, I can't remember, at the time of drafting last year, we still weren't sure if he was going to be suspended last year. So I think I got a little discount on him, and obviously it paid off because he didn't get suspended last year. So all just factors to consider. Again, as this highlights, every week means the exact same. Throw out playoff schedule week 17. This is, like you said, not all the money is in week 17. It is weeks 1 through 17 all mattered the exact same. I think you can stack up good offenses, but I would only overstack insanely good offenses. Last year, you would get paid off if you overstacked the Bengals or the Lions or the Bucks, but especially if you could get them at various prices. But not every team would you want to overstack. I think you want to attack great offenses as a tiebreaker. And if you're going to be heavy, like 4 or more players of a team, like obviously last year, the Bengals, it would work. But a lot of other teams, Lions, Bengals, Bucks, it would work. A lot of other teams, it wouldn't. So keep that in mind too. I think the biggest thing that is why I like this contest so much and you like this contest so much is it leans into what we naturally like to do on half point PPR underdog, is lean into a double anchor, a robust running back. If you're a zero RB bro or girl, this might be harder to pay off. I understand how zero RB works in the classic contest. In this, when everything matters the exact same, unless there's a rash of running back injuries early, it's really going to be hard for a zero RB team to pay off. So I want to have 2 to 3 projectable volume running back through the first 6 rounds of marathon drafts. I know you feel the same. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah. And it's also just take a minute to think about like how zero RB teams pay off. They pay off. Usually you're scraping by to get to the playoffs, usually is the number 2 seed in your pod, because they pay off. Not like, for instance, last year, you look at guys like there were some zero RBs that were type backs that were good, but outside of like Chuba Hubbard, most were not until the last 2/3 or last half of the season. Like Chase Brown, guys like Bucky Irving, whose role just continued to grow and grow. And so those backs paying off are great and great value. But when every week matters the same, if they're still your 4th or 5th back, when you have the Saquons and the Jacobs and those types of guys, fantastic. But when they're, the first 6 weeks, they're not adding much to your team, maybe a couple 10-point games, it might be a usable week, but it's not going to push you to the top. And, you need to have as strong scoring as possible every week that you can.
Yeah, I was basically anchored by obviously Saquon, Jacobs, and then Chuba Hubbard massively outperforming. And then Tank Bigsby did provide plenty of usable weeks for me. So, that did help. He was definitely a usable running back, and one late that was, in a committee, obviously. So you can draft those. But again, I'm looking for 3 projectable volume running backs in the top 6 rounds. That is very, very top 6, 7 rounds. That is very important to me. Then we talk about positional allocation. I know this is boring, but my favorite marathon build is 3-5-7-3 still. That is in classic. It is in this. It is an eliminator. It's in a lot of contests, but it fits well with the double anchor RB builds. It will help protect bye weeks, because you don't want to get wiped out and have it just a terrible week because of buys or not paying attention to buys or short-term injuries. I know we need to draft like we're right, but it's just like protecting the short-term injuries, protecting the bye weeks, making sure that every week is strong. If you look at my team, I think I skipped past that, but if you look at my team, I had no really low scoring weeks. My lowest scoring week was 113. My highest scoring week was 182. My average score was 138. If you're getting hit with like a 70 or 80 point week because of your build structure and bye weeks and injuries, that's going to hurt in this really, really bad. So you want to have consistently good weeks. And that's why you want to pay attention to the bye weeks, pay attention to your positional structure. I know a lot of people would say, well, you can do 2 quarterbacks in marathon. You can, you absolutely can. And especially last year, it could work if you drafted, Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, combo of those 2, basically, as long as they didn't hit the same bye week. I actually drafted Will Levis specifically because I had Kirk Cousins and Josh Allen on the same bye, and he actually did pay off and added 17 points on that week 12 bye. So, you can, but I will say if any quarterback misses time and then the other one's on a bye or has a really down week, that's going to hurt. Believe it or not, on a year that quarterbacks stayed very healthy, 14 quarterbacks played all 17 games for their teams. That was 5 more than the year prior. And the year prior, it was only 9 the year prior and 10 the year before that. Total quarterback games missed were much less last year. Even in a healthier quarterback year, 2 quarterback builds in the top 100 teams, this is when BBMD data was still up, was 44 out of 100, 3 quarterback teams, 54 out of 100, and 4 quarterback teams, 2 out of 100. So only 44 out of the 100 top 100 teams, even in a very healthy year, were 2 quarterback teams. So you could do it. It just surprised me that, I thought the data would shift to 2 quarterbacks in this format. But you made a good point about thinking about the team. So even if you did hit on like a Burrow and Jaden Daniels, sometimes that third quarterback can give you extra points that others won't have. Did you want to talk about that further?
Yeah, no. And I think that's a big thing. I mean, there were some quarterbacks last year, like Lamar really didn't have any true down weeks. I mean, there were weeks where he finishes 5th or 6th or 7th, but most quarterbacks, even Josh Allen, and that was unfortunately for you is at the end, Josh Allen's 2 of his weaker games were when Cousins was benched and Levis was benched or terrible.
Yeah.
And so, you just had to take those 12 points from Allen 16, where if you had another quarterback, you would have finished higher. And and for as good as Allen was, I mean, Allen was quarterback 2 on the year, but missing out. And he had a few other games early in the year, and 1 or 2 like Cousins filled in for and all that. But it pretty much every quarterback is going to have 10 to 13 of their best games. Like every top end quarterback, obviously bad quarterbacks don't meet that threshold, but and that's even with guys like Allen, even with guys like Hurts, whether it's due to injury or whether it's just a couple of down weeks. Jaden Daniels being the same, he had a couple like under 15-point games. And those are the ones where you're hoping you have one. If you have 2 backups, you can hope that one is exceeding that and just adding 2 points here, 5 points there, 3 points there. It could add up over the course of the year, even if it's only a handful of games. So,
well, like you said, it's the micro edges that will help push you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you need to get the right guys. If late you're hitting on like Baker or Sam Darnold, or Bo Nix, that's paying off considerably more than, like a Geno Smith or somebody like that. But so you do need to hit on the right guys. But when you do that, those are the teams that did rise to the top. Those 3 quarterback teams that had like a Baker, a Nix late, or Sam Darnold, type thing. So those were the ones that really did rise to the top because that just added that extra floor for, the Hurts and even some Lamar teams, but the Allen teams, Daniels teams, etc.
Yeah. And I know there are 3 quarterbacks that I'm looking at late in marathons as my third quarterback that I'll have a ton of exposure to. One is risky, Daniel Jones. We don't know what the Colts will do, but I think he'll win and keep the job. Obviously, has to stay healthy. The other 2 are Sam Darnold and Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is currently going as quarterback 27. If he stays healthy this year, he's going to finish higher than quarterback 27. I would pretty much bet everything on that. So I am going to have a lot of Aaron Rodgers, and I know people will be like, oh, well, he had 30 points in week 15. That helped me for my Bulldog team. Even if he's like a spot starter in your lineup, and he has an early but week 5 bye, that can be key. We just need him to stay healthy all year and do even remotely, even if he did what he did last year. He was, I believe, quarterback 20, for total season. I think he's quarterback 15 or 16.
He was 15 in total points, 17
points
points per game.
Right. So you're getting that quarterback 27 right now, and he finished quarterback 16 in total points. So, yeah. I mean, that's how I'm going to play that for sure. So that's kind of structure talk. Go ahead.
And that's the perfect example of getting exceeding value from where you're drafting him. Like if he was going as quarterback 15, then it's not a great value because his chance of being more than like quarterback 12 or 13, 14, he's not going to be a top 5 quarterback. But the fact that he's going so late, his chance to return value is extremely high. And then same with a guy like Darnold, like assuming he starts this year, the full year, like the coaches are talking about, et cetera, his chance of exceeding value is exceedingly high.
So basically I summarized it with every round I'm looking for is, can this player exceed their positional rank? We just talked about Aaron Rodgers, QB 27. If he stays healthy, the answer to me is very much so. Yes, I'm going to be doing that every position, every pick through every round. That's kind of the summary of it for me. What are any other summary strategies or strategies that you are keeping in mind through these marathon drafts?
Well, I think the other thing is the types of players that we're drafting, particularly at the running back position, because, I think you do want guys who have floors, but also ceilings. But like some of these contingent backs who only are going to have value due to an injury aren't going to be great unless that injury occurs. And again, those can pay off in a BBM because maybe they get, 3 games, 4 games and really pop for you. But overall, they're just not going to pay off as much. And I think when you're building like your wide receiver room, which should be 7 or 8 guys, I would never go any more than that. Mm-hmm. You want to have balance. You, of course, early on, guys who can be anything, like both elite guys and spike week and floor guys, but you want to mix of some spike week guys as well as some floor guys. You don't just want to take all spike week guys because the chances are you're going to just have weeks where they're all getting under 10 points and you're taking just a massive loss overall. And the weeks where they all, a couple of them spike are not going to necessarily make up for it enough. Now, if you take 1 or 2 spike week guys with some floor guys, then you can have enough balance there where the spike weeks pay off for you, but they're not just covering, the dud weeks. So I think that's important to keep in mind. But yeah, just to highlight again, the importance of the running back position, running backs score more points. We want it hitting our flex. We talk about this in all formats, but it's really important here. You're going to get the most total points if your running back is hitting the flex almost every week.
Hayden Winks just had a chart about it. We talked about it. We've talked about it consistently all year. We're building for the running back to hit the flex. So I'm building for 3 running backs each week to start and 3 receivers each week to start. I know Hayden just had a tweet about it and you and I quote retweeted it because it's something we've talked about really for years, but also since this big board season started.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, and I use this point in the super flex, if you're looking at a 15-point threshold, 11 running backs hit that threshold. Only 6 receivers managed to average 15 points per game. And I know we're talking total points versus average.
But that's what this is. Yeah.
But still, like if you're averaging it and you're healthy, those 15-point per week guys are going to be at the top. And we're talking you're 2 times more likely for a running back to hit that threshold than a receiver. And that's big. And in some years it's a little closer, but almost always the running backs are outproducing the receivers by a couple spots in that kind of 15-point threshold. So I would just keep that in mind with the way you build. Doesn't mean there aren't times where you can start 3 wide receivers, but in that cases, then you back off and don't take a receiver for a while or something along those lines. You don't want to ever be too thin at one of those positions.
Right. Totally agree. And I know a lot of kind of a hot term this year is like having a chaperone. You talked about, you can layer the different archetypes of players with the ceiling floor combo, whether it's, a more floor play vet with a higher spike week type rookie, or just layer those archetypes, have the chaperones, make sure that the roster construction makes sense. So like you said, it's not all floor guys. It's not all ceiling guys. Ideally, you got a lot of good floor ceiling combo players in themselves, but that it's layered within that. I think that is very important. So again, we're trying to hit a parlay of those top positional scores. We are very much valuing the running back position. If it's elite quarterback over elite tight end, I'm always leaning elite quarterback over elite tight end. We do still like the 3-5-7-3 build the best. We want to watch bye weeks. We don't want to have any down weeks. I think those are the biggest key summaries. And again, ask yourself every pick, is this guy going to outperform their ADP, outperform their positional ranking? Any other final thoughts, Steve?
No, I think that sums it up. And, of course, whenever you watch this video, if you have any questions, hit us up on the video or on our Twitters. Mm-hmm. And we're happy to help and answer questions. But it is a fun format, and I do recommend people trying it out more, but definitely try it out understanding what you're getting into.
Absolutely. No, great points all around. Of course, hit the like button on the way in or out of this video. Make sure to subscribe to the Fanspeak Network. We have best ball shows basically every day of the week, all sorts of fun stuff. And of course, check out the Fanspeak Substack, link in the description, $34.99 for the year. Articles like this that we just talked about. We're covering all the different Underdog formats, which a lot of subscriptions don't. We're covering all the formats because there's a lot of edge there. Rankings for all the formats, and plenty of articles from Steve and I every single week. So this has been fun, Steve. Good luck in your marathon contest. Hope to see you in the lobbies. For Steve, I'm Meg, and we will see you next time.